Hello everyone, my name is Braden. I work in banking operation at DR Resource Company and outsourced to DBS Bank. My presentation is organized into 6 parts. I will explain about the purpose of these presentations. Then I will discuss about the macroeconomy and business cycle. Next, I will analyze the Singapore 2025 tax rebate using the ADAS model. I will examine the tariff and trade wars. Next, I will discuss about the behavioral economics and it is relevant to DBS. I will end with a conclusion and recommendations. The purpose of this presentation is to explain the 4 key economic topics relevant to the banking industry, applying the economic theory to the DBS operating environment, assess how economic conditions affect customer, transactions, risk, operations, and provide a practical insight that support better business decision making. I will begin with the 3 macroeconomic indicators: GDP, inflation, unemployment. GDP is the total value of final goods and services produced in an economy. It shows the overall level of economic activity. Rising GDP means economy is growth, while weak GDP can indicate a slowdown. Inflation refers to the general rise in prices over time. It is reduced purchasing power, meaning the customer can buy less with the same amount of money. When inflation is higher, goods and services will become more expensive. Unemployment is the percentage of the labor force without a job. It measures labor market conditions. Rising unemployment often signals a weaker economy, while falling unemployment suggests stronger economic conditions. For DBS, these indicators are important because they can directly affect lending, payments, customer affordability, and credit risk. Stronger GDP can increase lending and investment activity. Higher inflation can reduce purchasing power and affect borrowing behavior, while rising unemployment can increase defaults and financial stress. This indicator helps us understand about the business cycle, which includes expansions, weak, peak, recession, and recovery. During expansion, GDP rises, unemployment falls, and consumer spending and business investment is increasing. For DBS, this can support more lending and spending activity. At the peak, the economy is growing at the near full capacity. Inflation pressure becomes stronger, interest rate may become higher. For banks, this can create margin opportunities, but it is also bringing a higher risk. During recession, GDP falls, unemployment rises, both business activity and customer spending is weakened. For DBS, this may be seen as slower loan growth and higher defaults. During recovery, economic activity starts improving again. Confidence returns, employment begins to rise, lending and investment starts to recover. I will move to the topic 2. In 2025, Singapore gave tax resident individual a 60% personal income tax rebate, capped at 200 Singapore dollar. This increased the household disposable income and encouraged more consumer spending. This policy can be analyzed using the ADAS model to understand its effects on the Singapore economy in both the short run and the long run, as well as what it may be mean to DBS. In the short run, tax rebate increase disposable income, which leads to higher household consumption. As shown in the diagram, aggregate demand shift right from AD1 to AD2. This moved the economy from point A to point B. Real GDP rises from Y star to Y1, and the price level rises from P1 to P2. For DBS, this short-run effect may lead to higher card and payment transaction, more retail banking activity, and higher transaction processing workload. However, this effect is likely to be temporary. In the long run, the increase in aggregate demand is temporary. As wages and input cost rises, short-run aggregate supply shift left, the economy moves toward its long-run equilibrium. Real GDP returns to the potential output at Y star, while the price level rises further from P1 to P3. For DBS, this means that the customer activity may normalize over time. At the same time, higher prices may affect borrowing and spending. Affordability pressure may be increased, and customer risk should be monitored carefully. In the next slide is about the tariff and trade wars. In this slide, I'm using supply and demand to show the effect of tariff on Singapore exports to the US. With the trade supported by DBS through trade finance, foreign exchange, and cross-border payments. The tariff raises the domestic price from PW to PT. As a result, domestic supply increases from Q2 to Q4, while domestic demand falls from Q3 to Q5. This means that imports shrink after the tariff and market efficiency is decreasing. In short, a tariff raises prices, reduces trades, and creates inefficiency in the market. Who wins and who loses for the tariff? The winners obviously is US producers and the US government. Producers benefit from less foreign competitions, while the government gains from tariff revenue. The losers are the consumers, foreign exporters, and import-dependent firms. Consumers pay higher prices, exporters sell less, and firms relying on imports face higher costs. For DBS, the likely impact includes the lower trade finance and payment volumes, higher client demand for hedging and risk support, and greater operational and compliance pressure. So, even though the tariff is not imposed directly on DBS, it still affects DBS indirectly through lower trade flows and higher uncertainty. I will now move into the topic 4. Behavioral economics recognizes that customer and decision makers do not always act fully rational. Their behavior can be influenced by framing, limited attentions, bias, and emotions. For DBS, this matters because the way information is presented affects customer choices. Customers may ignore the complex terms or warnings. They may also make a predictable decision errors from bias. In addition, emotions such as fear, trust, and stress can influence financial decisions. This means that behavioral economics is important for improving customer communications and supporting better banking decisions. In this slide, we give 2 examples. The first example is the framing effects. Customers respond differently depending on how information is presented. DBS can frame fraud alerts, repayment reminders, savings prompts more effectively. Better framing can improve customer actions and reduce costly mistakes. The second example is overconfidence. Customers or managers may underestimate financial and operational risks. DBS can reduce this through stronger controls, better review process, and more data-based decisions. Overall, this behavioral insight can improve communications, strengthen risk control, and support better consumer outcomes. In conclusions, economic conditions rarely affect DBS operations. Macroeconomic indicators influence lending, payments, customer affordability, and credit risk. The 2025 tax rebate may lift banking activity in the short run, but the effect is temporary. Tariff can reduce trade-related volumes and increase uncertainty. Behavioral economics helps DBS improve communications, risk control, and consumer decisions. So based on this presentation, I recommend 4 actions. First, monitor macro indicators such as GDP, inflation, and unemployment. Secondly, track changes in customer spending, payment volumes, and affordability risks. Third, strengthen the support for trade-exposed clients and forex or risk management needs. Lastly, use behavioral insights more actively in alerts, reminders, and customer communication. That's all from my presentation. Thank you.